Joining us from Tulsa, Oklahoma, I'm Dan Potter.
Joining us from Chandler, Arizona, I'm Rich Frazier.
Joining us from Hurst, Texas, I'm John Pollard.
Hi, and welcome to Joining Us, celebrating 50 years of Bands of America. My name is Chuck Henson, and for 35 of those 50 years, I was the primary public address announcer for Bands of America's series of regional and the Grand National Marching Band Championships. Now, over the course of the next 25 episodes, I'm going to do my very best to bring you the people and stories that ultimately have created the excellence that is BOA.
I just was fascinated by this man's marketing ability and the idea that he was putting together a national organization.
Well, one was having hamburgers directly across the table from Dr. Ravelli. So I'm literally watching him eat a hamburger thinking, that's William D. Ravelli having a hamburger in front of me.
Back when Marching Bands of America began in 1975, I and my high school marching band were one of the first to participate.
10 years after the experience, I'm still hearing from kids who thought that was one of the coolest things they ever got to do.
I mean, when you went joining us, those kids went nuts right then. You could have read out of a phone book from that point on. You had them.
They're just going to blow the roof off the place. Like, I get chills thinking about it.
The rifles would spin rifles, then they would catch them and they would fall on the ground at the end of the tune.
Like a death drop.
Yeah.
What's in your blood? If you cut my arm, I'll bleed Bands of America, Music for All.
What Marching Bands of America started was innovative, so new, so exciting.
50 years, a half century? Are you kidding me?
Happy 50th anniversary to Bands of America.
So get your program, find a great seat here in our virtual stadium, and get ready to learn everything you ever wanted to know about Bands of America.
Joining us from Melbourne, Ohio.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Joining Us, celebrating 50 years of excellence, 50 years of Bands of America. My name's Chuck Henson, and as mentioned previously, for 35 of those years, I was the primary public address announcer for the Regional and Grand National Marching Band Championships, but it is not a job that can be done alone anymore. There are so many events that happen with Music for All. I think 9 shows just in Texas alone when it comes to the regionals and super regionals, and of course, the monster that is the Grand National Championships. And to make all of those happen, it takes a team of incredible human beings to be the public address announcers for these events. And while I certainly would like to take credit for bringing them all on board, I can take credit for none of it, except for maybe Alex. Alex is the one that I brought in.
No.
Did I bring you on board, Dan?
Well, we'll tell the story.
Okay. So joining me is Mr. Dan Potter. A lot of people recognize Dan from DCI and, of course, all the things that he does during Grand Nationals from the field. John Pollard is here as well. John, how long have you been on the team? More than a decade, right?
It's been about 12 years now. Yes, sir.
Oh, my gosh. And then Rich Frazier is here as well. Rich, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Chuck.
Now, if Rich Frazier's name isn't one that you recognize right off the bat, well, Rich predates me in the announcer booth. The OG announcer for Bands of America was a guy named Mr. Dick Janik, and we've talked about Dick before. Dick ended up purchasing McCormick's and went off in a different direction, and I stepped in after him. But Rich was part of the team when it was just the two of you. Were there enough shows, Rich, at that point for you and Dick to split them and share?
There were. And actually, the seat was still warm from where Dick Janik was sitting when I got into it.
I'll bet.
It was pretty incredible. I learned from the master himself.
Well, guys, I want to kind of go back to the origins of all of us, in essence, and how you got connected to the organization and kind of where you found out that this was something that you would be good at, because you're all clearly very, very good at it. Rich, let me start with you. I want to talk about kind of the origins of how you stepped into the booth. How did you find that you had the pipes to do it? How did you find that you had the style to be a public address announcer? And where did they find you?
So I started out as a camper at Bands of America. My first summer as a camper was, I think, 1980, 81. And I spent 2 years as a camper, then went back as a swag in 1983.
Where'd you go to high school?
Benton High School in Arkansas.
Okay, yeah. Some good stuff coming out of that part of the world now.
We were the lab band in 1982. And Bob Buckner actually was the guy who worked with our band at that time. So in 1983, I joined the swag team and got to know Scott McCormick and all the gang there that worked in the office at the time. and went back for more torture the next summer as a member of the swag team. And I think it was that time, summer of '84, Scott asked me if I wanted to start announcing. He found out I was a radio television major at Arkansas State University.
There you go. That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
So that was your program in school? You were a broadcast journalist, radio, TV guy?
I was going to be the next Tom Brokaw.
Right on.
Absolutely.
Now, let me back up one more step, too, because you mentioned it a couple times, and I don't think it's come up yet in any of our conversations about the swag team. Tell me about the swag team. What do they do?
Boy, the swag team was great. You know, it was that group of kids, and I call them kids. We were all college students, right? But we were that group of people who just came for camps and did whatever it took to make camp happen. We didn't get paid. We just figured stuff out as we went. And we just learned how to do things, how to just take care of things. And I credit that for a lot of my success in life, honestly. It was great.
Would it be safe to assume that that be something on the equivalent of a TA or an RA that folks would understand in different terms? And they kind of chaperone the kids as well?
On crack, a TA on crack.
Now, I understand, and I don't know the answer to this, but I understand that no one is ever allowed to say what swag stands for.
Dude, we were never told what swag stood for.
Well, wait, you may have just unveiled the secret for everybody. So it was then that Scott came to you and said, hey, you got some decent pipes. You're in college for this program. Give it a try.
Yeah, it was as simple as that. And I think I suited up that summer with the Summer Grand Nationals at Whitewater.
I have a very similar story when we get to meet. John, how did you get connected? You were a band director in Texas, right?
Well, long before that, it goes back to being a high school kid who loved band, my family's musical, graduated and was helping my old high school drumline, Port Angeles High School in Washington State. And this was the year of our Lord, 1984 and 85 and a couple of years thereabouts. And the funny thing here is I think there's a connection with Rich because the first experience I had was at a Marching Bands of America show on their 10th anniversary in 1985 in Moscow, Idaho. And I was a drum instructor rolling, and we'd never been to a contest like that. We'd never seen anything like the competitive bands that we saw coming from all over that Pacific Northwest, especially University High School, which Gary Green was that instructor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was a kid with drumsticks in my back pocket, seeing levels of band, marching band I'd never seen before. And the announcements and the pageantry was amazing. And my understanding is Rich was the announcer at that first event.
That's nice.
I was there. I never saw the light of day. We flew in. It was dark on a Friday night. We got up before the daylight and drove to the indoor dome and then left after dark and then left on Sunday morning before the sun came up and flew away. But I saw your band.
Well, and I tell you, we were inspired, and I as a person was inspired by that. And fast forward, Chuck, you're right. Years later, I became a band director in Texas. And so I started lobbying for the first school I was at. Hey, let's go to the Bands of America Championships.
Was that at LD Bell or prior to that?
No, it was a town called Tomball, still called Tomball, by the way.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
And Tomball is now very competitive. At the time, we were in a smaller classification, but a very good team and a very good school. But I got involved with McCormick's, actually. I did a clinic for McCormick's at the TBA, Texas Bandmasters Association convention. And then I got hooked up with Yamaha. And of course, Yamaha's been national presenting sponsor for Music for All and Bands of America for a long time. And so I started coming in and doing instruction for the honor band and instruction at the summer symposium, which is now camp.
I think that's when I would have probably met you after you were attached to Yamaha.
Yes, I had stars in my eyes when I met you. And so I was really a teacher, and being involved as a teacher was fun, but I was always kind of a frustrated radio guy. I always wanted to be on the radio or the TV. And I think I need to pass the baton to Dan because he'll tell this story better than I will.
Who is the actual radio guy, the award-winning radio guy out of all of us? Hi, Dan.
Hi.
Now you're from Illinois, right? Is that where you grew up?
Yeah, I grew up in the Quad Cities, Moline, Illinois. Marched in the Geneseo Knights Drum and Bugle Corps from 1979 to 1981. I was drum major in my high school band. Did my first year at drum corps, came back to the high school band. The band director said, you need to choose. I said, well, I choose drum corps.
Really?
Yeah, I actually dropped band. It was not a competitive marching band program. It was, looking back on it, it was pretty lame.
You know what's so funny is that I've heard that story a couple times where there was almost a feud between the drum corps folks and the marching band folks.
Definitely.
70s and 80s is not like it is now. 80s it started to change, but there was a wall between drum corps and these G bugles that were never in tune and band directors who liked intonation. Go figure. So that's, I made my choice and didn't look back and had a great 3-year run with the Knights and then started teaching marching with the Toledo Glassmen in the mid 80s and also had my radio career taken me to Fort Wayne, Indiana, where I started working with the Fort Wayne Northrop Big Orange Pride as one of their visual instructors as well. And at some point in there, actually it was not until I moved to Texas in 88 and kind of got out of all of that for a little bit, things flipped. And in 1990, I realized that the Skywriters were moving from Hutchinson, Kansas to Dallas, and I wanted to be involved in some way with them. That led to me announcing my first drum corps show. I think it was in Canyon, Texas, for the Skywriters. It was like one of their home shows in 1990. Somewhere, Chuck, around, and this is where John gets rolled into the story, because somewhere in the late 90s, I want to say 97, I wrote Chuck Henson, who was, well, maybe you can help me out with this. What years were you actually the marketing guy for Bands of America?
I started announcing in 87, and I wasn't working for the organization at that point.
Right.
It would have been soon after, though.
Okay.
Like late 80s, early 90s.
But were you there? Because I wrote you a letter on WBAP letterhead from the radio station I worked at in Dallas and said, hey, Mr. Henson, I understand Bands of America has some shows down this way. If you ever need another announcer, I've got, this experience and that experience. And next thing I knew, you were calling me and saying, yeah, we've got some shows coming up. Are you in? And one of them, I think my very first one, was at the University of Texas at Arlington. And parallel to that, John Pollard, being a band director at LD Bell High School in Hearst in one of the Dallas-Fort Worth suburbs, is a fan of the radio station that I was working at. Was a longtime listener, first-time caller.
Frustrated announcer. Exactly right, Dan.
And I can't remember, John, if you contacted me or I think Bell was having like some barbecue fundraiser. And I volunteered to be your MC or something like that.
Oh, cool. That's how you guys met?
Exactly right.
That's how we met. And of course, now Dr. Jeremy Earnhardt was one of the other band directors there. Joe Grzybowski was the head band director. And that Blue Raider family just kind of adopted me. And at some point, I started announcing a local marching band invitational that the Birdville School District did there, and Bill Watson and all the great folks that were in that district. And it was one of those where, like, Chuck, I'm sure you've done this at some point where you've got one weekend where you do a local show just because, right?
Right.
I do the Union show here in Tulsa every year because it's my home show. Same thing there. I was doing a Birdville show, but then BOA became an every weekend of the fall thing.
Yeah, it sure did.
And that absorbed all of that stuff. And Birdville was needing an announcer. And I knew this guy who had this latent dream of being in radio and being an announcer. And I said, hey, John, you want to announce Birdville? And the rest is history.
So you're to blame.
I'm to blame. You're to blame for me. I'm to blame for John.
The only innocent one here is Rich.
Rich, do you still announce? Do you still do public address?
I do, absolutely. So when my son started high school in 2012, I started announcing the state semifinal contest, which his high school hosted. I'm still announcing at that high school contest 13 years later.
That's awesome.
They've now switched over to the state championship. So yeah, I'm the guy. I'm the voice of that contest at that high school. And I dig it. It's a small niche that we are in, but we're in it.
I wish we had met prior to just this past August. We could certainly have used you over the past several years, but you made your mark certainly when you did. Mine is very similar. I was going to be a special ed teacher, actually, at the University of Kentucky, and I was working at the ed library. And the head librarian's husband called to talk to her, and I answered the phone. And he gave me a job sight unseen. He was the program director of a radio station in Lexington, Kentucky. I started doing overnight weekends. Of course, that's where you put guys like me. I'll tell you a really funny sidebar story. It was an oldies AM radio station.
Nice.
And those songs, and Dan will know this, are about 2 minutes long max. When it was turntables on both sides. So you are a one-arm paper hanger, the whole time, just trying to keep up.
It's a very physical job.
Incredible and mentally taxing. I mean, you would leave that shift and just be exhausted. Well, my friends, I'm in college. My friends are partying on the weekends and that sort of thing. And they would know when I put on Disco Inferno, which is an 8-minute song, that it was bathroom time for Chuck. So this whole time I'm doing the BOA Summer Camp. I'd started teaching the color guard curriculum there. And Rich, very similar to your story, I think it was Kevin McCormick that came to me and said, hey, we understand you work at a radio station. Mm-hmm. Dick Janik, who's our announcer for Summer Nationals, is really under the weather. Do you mind just tag teaming with him tonight? Sure. And honestly, guys, that was my first time ever with Summer Nationals, 1987. Had never announced a show prior to that. And they asked me to do day one of Grand Nationals in 87 in the Pontiac Silverdome. May it rest in peace. And then, the rest after that. Would you guys all agree with me in that doors open for a reason, right? We all connected. The network happens the way it's supposed to happen. And we just have to be smart enough to walk through those doors to be able to enjoy what's on the other side.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I don't want to hijack the show, Chuck.
Yeah. Comma.
As long as we're talking origin stories, I'm really curious. Did Dick Janik come up with joining us? Has it been that since the beginning?
No, that was me, actually.
Okay.
So when I started, and Rich, you can back me on this, it was still on the starting line.
Which is old school drum corps. Yeah.
Yeah, they were imitating DCI. I mean, they still had a gun and stuff like that, toward the time limit of the shows. And I want to say, if memory serves me, it was Debbie Lafferty and I were kind of revamping the whole thing to make it a little bit more user-friendly. And that's when joining us became a thing. It sounded more welcoming. It was if the show were just continuing. It's not a stop, start. Now joining us is this person. And now joining us is that person. And really, it got legs on its own. And really, that kind of leads me to another topic because, John, you took that format and moved it out to the Colorado State Championships, right?
I was about to mention the fact that particular decision, and it's not just Colorado. In fact, Texas in UIL, it's not the same, but we decided to change to a opening statement that would allow pre-show. Because the best thing about joining us is you can have absolute silence on the field and it works, or if a band is already getting a running start, it works fine. And so, both those states, Colorado and Texas, and I'm aware of others that have taken that particular decision that you made and integrated it so that it's a real welcoming and open format.
Well, it's a nice legacy for BOA for sure. And for all of us, when you get the opportunity to use that phrase, to say it, and I know all of you guys, I know how you feel when you say that, all of us, we sit up taller in the seat. It brings something to the field that wasn't there prior. There's a sense of pride and accomplishment attached to it. And
I think it goes to why we do this, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't do this for us. We do this for those people out on the field.
Boom.
We do that for the moms and dads and families who are in the audience, right? And there's a charge in there. When you start those words, joining us, please welcome to the field.
Yeah.
That makes those kids out on the field, they stand up a little straighter. They feel like they're already important, but they feel a little bit more important.
Do you guys ever have a chance to talk with any of the groups outside of the arena that we work in and kind of let them know how we feel about what we're doing up in the booth?
I feel like I'm totally anonymous when I'm announcing.
Yeah.
Except, for those who are close enough to peer in the window and, see the guy behind the curtain.
Yeah.
But what's really cool, though, is after the show is done, we've been announcing through and I'm talking about the local show. But when the show is done and I've been announcing 40 bands and it's 10 o'clock at night and I'm shutting things down, but the window's still open and the family members come by and they say, thank you. There's been an impact made there. There's been an impact made on the members of the audience and on the kids on the field. And that's very cool.
I think I'm in a unique situation in the room in the sense that I was the consumer before I was on this side of the counter. And so even with a band that was not going to make finals when I was first working, and then going to a band that ultimately became a Grand National champion at LD Bell, I can tell you this. To this day, I do interface with all those folks. As a matter of fact, I make sure that when we have the finalist directors meeting, that's one place where I want to go down and I want to make sure they understand how special it is to be a finalist. Even those that have been there year after year.
Agreed.
They always acknowledge the first ones in the room. And it's really cool because in some places they bring their drum majors. And so you don't just see the directors that are feeling the gravity of being named to that show. You also see it on the kids' faces.
Well, you also get to see the cooperative environment that happens at a BOA show, because it's never going to be about placement. It's always going to be about excellence, right? So what I see when you walk into those finalist directors meetings is hugs and handshakes and congratulations. And oh my God, your kids were amazing. Good luck tonight. That kind of an atmosphere is what happens in there. And I love addressing those finalist directors meetings to be able to say, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be a part of your program just for a little bit.
One of those stories that I like to tell is the bands that don't make finals, but stick around and go up and watch the finals. Those are your future finalists. Because I'll tell you something, I experienced this firsthand. If you take kids up and you watch a BOA finals from the stands, the kids will suddenly say, we can do that.
Yeah.
And they will improve months ahead in one night.
Been there, yeah.
So it's such a great uplifting opportunity. And I know we got here from just saying the joining us, but Chuck, I think it's not just that decision. It's so many decisions that have been made.
Yeah.
One of them being saying the drum majors' names as part of the intro.
Yes.
I love that.
And if I have a personal motivating factor, if I have to pick out one thing that is critically important to me when I announce.
Yes, Mr. Porter. Yes.
Yes, exactly. It is getting the drum majors' names right. Because when I marched those 3 years of drum corps, I was literally called Don Porter more often than I was called Dan Potter. And nothing makes you feel less significant than having your name at a big moment in your life mispronounced.
And I think everybody needs to know that we take really great effort into that. I mean, if there's even a remote of a question, we're on the radio to the field going, hey, get that drum major to say their name so that we make sure that we get it right. I can't imagine. I was a drum major for my high school as well. And I can't imagine being on the podium, being focused. You put all that work and effort into it. And then, boom, the announcer screws up your name and all the kids are looking at you.
Yeah.
And now they're not focused on the show anymore.
Right.
And it would be awful.
Any mistake we make, I feel like, is a distraction from their mission. And that hurts.
100%. And you carry that. I carry it, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like for the rest of the day, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that.
Yep.
Well, okay, that's a good transition, gentlemen, because I want to kind of go into a BOA blooper town, if I can, for just a little bit. I will say that at my first Grand Nationals, 1987, in the Pontiac Silverdome, I had never been at that event before. I didn't know any of those bands, right? Now, they're all family, but I didn't know any of them at the time. And it was either Marlington or Marietta, Ohio, that was on the field. They are both orange bands. They both have an M on their podium, and I didn't know either of them. And their pages got switched in the script somehow.
Oh no.
And let's say Marlington was on the field, and I go, the Marietta High School Marching Band, and the crowd starts to boo. I'm like, oh my God. and I can just hear this rumble coming up from the building. And somehow, because I don't know that I had a radio, sure there was, but somehow I figured it out, flipped them, did the announcement again, and then yay, starts after that. But that was, my first Grand Nationals. I mean, just crazy.
Chuck, did you hear from either Marietta or Marlington after that?
I did not, thank God. I don't know that I would have shown my face at that point. I was certain they weren't going to ask me back, as a matter of fact, after that, because it was the sort of mistake that you make on a national level that you and I would never make today. Literally the newbie mistake. And who is the king of proofreading his script is John Pollard.
Oh, yeah.
If I pick up a script that John's already had his hands on, there are more notes and flags and Post-it notes in it than anyone. So kudos to you, John, for that.
Well, if there's a weird pronunciation and it's not really spelled out correctly, we want to make sure that we get it right each time. That's why we do those at the Grand National and Super Regional levels, because there's multiple voices coming in.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's take a moment for a quick break, because I want to listen to some of your stories. Now, remember, if you've got a special Music for All or Bands of America memory or story, you can record it and be a part of this very 50th anniversary podcast. Just visit musicforall.org/podcasts to contribute your story.
Hey, it's Alex Quintero, and it is an honor to be a Bands of America announcer. I take a lot of pride in the work I do behind the microphone because I know it impacts those shows. And past the shows themselves, I know it impacts the performers. Sometimes to remember this, I go back to a memory of when I was working the Joining Us booth at Grand Nationals one year. I went back to my hotel in the evening after we had announced who would be advancing to semifinals, and the hotel I was staying at was shared by a couple of other groups. So as I walked into the lobby of the hotel, there were tons of band kids in the lobby on couches and chairs and playing games and stuff, and most of them were crying and not in very good spirits. So I went to ask a couple of the kids, what's going on? Why is everyone so sad? And they told me that it's because they didn't advance on to semifinals. And I gave them some inspiring words, and that seemed to cheer them up. And so after I had talked to them, they said, by the way, who are you? And I said, I'm one of the announcers with Bands of America. And all of a sudden, their mood completely changed. And I said, you're one of those guys? You're the guy who says, Johnny, can you do it? And so, sure, of course, they're in a bad mood. So I said, sure. What's the name of your group? And so I said, joining us from the name of their group. And they were just so excited to learn that they had met someone on the team of announcers because of how our words and how our delivery impacts their show and how it makes them feel during our events. And so that was a really core memory for me, being able to turn a bad night around for a band just by telling them that I'm on the announce team for Bands of America and giving them a little demo of what their joining us announcement sounds like in person. So the work we do as announcers is important. It does play a role in the shows, and it does impact, hopefully, everyone in some way. I hope you guys enjoyed the story. And as we begin our 2025 fall season, I hope you'll continue celebrating with us 50 years of musical excellence through Music for All and Bands of America.
My name is Neeraj Chandrasekharan, and I'd like to wish Bands of America a happy 50th birthday. Here's to another 50 years of excellence in the pageantry arts.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brad Bell, and I'm an announcer for Bands of America Regional Championships. So to this day, my favorite Bands of America story is how I became a Bands of America announcer. It was in the summer of 2013, and I was announcing the Drum Corps International Individual and Ensemble event while that was still going on. And the assistant that I had that day, her name was Molly Miller. I know her last name has changed since then, but Molly was there with me, and we got to talking. And she informed me that she was an event coordinator for Music for All. And I said, hey, great. I have all this announcing experience with Drum Corps International and Winter Guard International. If you ever need a guy, I would love to help out with you, because I know that you all have the three main people that you use. You have Chuck Henson, you have Dan Potter, you have John Pollard. And I don't want to step on any toes here, but should the need arise that you are looking for another person, please feel free to contact me. We exchanged information, and the rest of the show went fine, and I didn't really think anything of it. Well, about a month later, I get an email from Deb Lafferty, and Deb is like, hey, listen, I got your info from Molly. We need an announcer in October. It was in Jacksonville, Alabama. Are you available to do it? And I'm like, absolutely, I'm available to do it, because I took a piece of advice from a good friend of mine named Wayne Markworth. And he's always told me, if Bands of America ever calls you, you answer the phone. So, in a way, I answered the phone. And I responded to her and said, yes, I'm available. And we worked out the travel, and I got down to Georgia and drove over to Alabama. And there's the show. Now, mind you, it's a pretty big show. I think there was 24 or 25 groups there at the time. So it was a decent show. I walk into the press box and say hi to everybody and introduce myself. Hi, I'm Brad. I'm your new announcer. How you doing? What's happening? And they hand me the script. They hand me the microphone. They hand me the walkie-talkie. They hand me the stopwatch and say, Godspeed, and walked out. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we're doing this. Now, fortunately, I prepped pretty well for this. I watched all the videos on how the clock works and how everything is lined up with the front sideline and how we're always in constant communication, and you have 45 seconds to do this and whatnot. And I just ran with it. And the show's going. Everything went fine. Prelims are done. Okay, great. Finals, got that done. Wonderful. So next morning, got in the shuttle. Well, when the shuttle was 2 hours away, but got in the car, headed back to Atlanta, flew home. And I'm like, hey, all right. I just announced a show for Bands of America. Cool. Didn't really think anything of it. But then I started getting more calls to do BOA shows. And I'm like, oh, all right. So we're doing this now. And I kept getting calls and I kept doing shows for them. And 12 years later, here we are. This is season number 12. And knock on wood, I'm still getting calls for Music for All and Bands of America shows. And I'm super grateful for it, because It's always a great show every time. I mean, it's so well organized. Things are put together. You go in, you do the show, you work with everybody, and at the end, the result is that everyone's happy. And I love shows like that. But fortunately, I'm still doing this for Bands of America, and I'll keep doing it as long as they will have me. But that is, right now, to this day, my favorite Music for All story. Thanks, guys.
Joining us from the announce team, hi, I'm Nick Costello. So my Bands of America journey started as a part of the Dobbins-Bennett High School Marching Band for 2 years as a trumpet player and then 2 as a drum major. It continued after high school, actually, when my director of bands, Leif Cook, told me about the very first BOA Announcer Challenge back in 2020. Now, little did I know that a couple of weeks later, with the support of our incredible Kingsport, Tennessee band family and generous Music for All donors, might I add, that I'd be named the first ever Grand Champion. It was that moment that opened the door for my first announcement at Grand Nats in 2021, where I had the honor of presenting an award to the Murray State University Racer Band and afforded me the opportunity to continue my involvement in Music for All. The following season, I joined the announcing team full-time, and since then I've had the privilege not only to announce, but work as an events coordinator and with warm-up and flow teams during my announcing off weekends. One of the best parts of this role is being able to travel, see, and interact with incredible high school marching bands from all over the country, watching the passion, dedication, and leadership of thousands of students who represent the best of our future. I'm truly humbled and grateful to give back to an organization that gave me so much as a student, and one that continues to open doors for young people through performance, leadership, teacher development, and community engagement. So happy 50th birthday, BOA, and here's to many more years of inspiring young people through music.
All right, now let's rejoin our conversation. Let me see if I can get you guys to do a little confession, because I have a lot of these. I've made a list of all my boo-boos, and I know which one I want to hear from Dan. But so, Rich, you want to start? You got anything fun to share?
Yes, I do, except I am going to take the excuse of being old and my memories from Bands of America announcing being 40 years ago. But there was an incident in East Tennessee in the Dome, and I learned that it's pronounced Pagliacci and not Pagliacci. I learned it the hard way.
What is the hard way?
Well, we did have radios in the booth at that time, and somebody came on and told me after the band started their show, hey, Rich, that's not how you pronounce that word. So no more Rice Krispies, folks.
If I had a dime for every one of those.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Pollard?
Oh, yeah. One time I tried not to give out 7th place.
Hey.
What? I don't know this story. What?
Yeah, this was in the Northeast, and I'm spacing on exactly where it was, and probably better if I don't confess to the scene of the crime. But everybody there knows it happened. We're counting down the placements at the end of the night. And this was back in the day when we'd do all the caption awards up front. So they weren't interspersed. And so the caption awards were given. And I think it was pretty obvious that there was going to be one, a certain winner. Well, I was counting down from 12. And at that time, it was the last night where I wasn't marking through the placements that I had already done. And I get some kind of a communication in my earbud, and I keep going. And after 4th place, I get an urgent radio up. John, we missed one. And I said, what are you talking about? We didn't give 7th place away. I said, are you kidding me? No.
Wait, so you're at 4th now, and the 7th place band is still sitting there?
Yes, I'd done 6th, 5th, and 4th.
And they think they might be 3rd at this point.
They might be 3rd. Exactly right.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God.
And so, I made a big dramatic event of it, and I said, and now we're going to announce 7th place. Yeah, it got some laughs, but I'm pretty sure I broke some hearts who thought they were going to be 3rd place.
Oh, God.
And maybe cause some heart attacks.
Mr. Potter, are you going to tell the story that I want to hear?
Does it involve Owasso?
It does. It does indeed.
Well, there are actually 2 stories involving Owasso. In one, I was announcing the finalists, and I think it was St. Louis. I think these were both at St. Louis, actually.
St. Louis is a cursed show.
It is.
You've had these errors. I fell and hit my head one year.
Yeah, it is.
That happened.
One of the things that the announcers get to do is we can call an audible and decide when we're announcing the finalist bands we might pick out a certain band and announce them last, especially if they were on the bubble. Maybe we have a personal friendship. We're just having fun. And that day I decided I was going to announce Owasso last.
Now, we're not talking in last place. We're talking about announcing them last as in they made finals on the list.
Yeah. Right.
In no particular order.
Yeah, we say randomly.
Yes. Yeah.
The biggest lie in pageantry is now announced in random order. Your finalists.
Semi-random.
The random order is whatever we say the random order is. Yeah.
Exactly. Hi, I'm random. So the big hype, I'm getting whatever band number 11 was. There's a pause. And our 12th finalist tonight from Owasso, Texas, the Owasso High School. And of course, Owasso is in Oklahoma, where I live. They're right up the street. And that Monday, when kids came into the band hall in Owasso, there was a sign over the band hall that said, "Welcome to Owasso, Texas."
Excellent. Excellent. That's fantastic.
That's one Owasso story. I don't know why it always happens with me in Owasso, but maybe the very next year or a couple of years later, John and I are in the booth together. We're co-announcing St. Louis, and I had him do a FaceTime live of me announcing Owasso in their finals performance. Everything was fine in the announcement and in the FaceTime live portion of it. And after I said, what is our, the Owasso High School Marching Band, and they start performing, right? And I turned to John holding the phone, holding the camera, and I looked right at the camera. I said, "Good luck, Owasso." Well, what I had forgotten was I hadn't turned off my mic, and that whole "Good luck, Owasso" went out into the building.
Man.
And the look on my face when I realized it. Yeah.
I don't know that anyone understands how quickly blood can rush out of your head. Because you make a mistake like that on an open mic in a stadium with 40,000 people in it.
Yeah.
That's something that very few people get to experience. Thank goodness, the very few people. I had one in Toledo, Ohio once. This is very early. Back before the Glass Bowl had been rebuilt into the beautiful structure it is today, it was just a wooden press box with, plexiglass window fronts on it. And I was in one, and Debbie Lafferty was in the one next to me. And had a break or something like that in the show. But Debbie and I were talking through the plexiglass to each other. And the people in the top row of the stands, their heads were right in front of me. And this lady kept turning around and looking back toward Debbie and I. And I'm being a smart aleck going, "What are you looking at? Turn around. Turn around. Look, go forward."
Oh, no.
Here comes Scott McCormick running from the back corner of the stadium, waving his arms and screaming at the top of his lungs, "The mic is on!"
What are you looking at?
I'm telling the entire stadium to turn around and mind your own business. And awful.
I never heard that story. That's awesome.
The things you learn when you work in public address.
Chuck, honestly, I am surprised you were invited back.
Well, I was established by that point. I think I worked for BOA at that point. So they couldn't afford to get rid of me because they would lose one of the 7 people that was on staff. It's hard to believe that there's 30 some people on staff now, and we did that whole thing with 7.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, just crazy. I was tabulating and announcing at the same time.
That's crazy.
For the first 10 years or so. I've made a ton of mistakes in 35 years, just for the record.
And we all have.
Well, I made a ton of mistakes in 3 years, Chuck.
Yeah.
I just don't remember them.
The thing is, the one we've all done, and I think what hopefully distinguishes us against somebody who maybe only does it once in a while, is we don't get caught by the false ending as much as somebody who may only announce one show a year or something like that.
Yeah, you get one of those with me. One.
Yeah. It hasn't happened to me in a long time, because now I know there are at least 5 things I look for before I ever open up my microphone and start talking at the end of a show.
Do that list. Go through it.
I look at the pit. Are they standing still? I look at the drum major. Are they turning around and announcing? I look for the staff. Are they coming out onto the field? I look for the kids on the field. How are they reacting? That may be about it. But unless those criteria are met, I'm not going to talk.
Same. Yeah.
No, I think early in the days of that, Centerville got me a couple times back in the day when they would do a reprise of whatever, tune they were playing. But once, you get one. And then after that, I'm good. at ETSU, another ETSU story, and you guys all know this. I don't know that Rich knows this, but there was one year at the regional there, and I had to go to the restroom, and I started a group. I left to go to the restroom, and I come back, and the door is locked to get into the booth.
Oh, no.
And we call the manager of the stadium, and he comes up, and I'm not exaggerating at all. He pulls out a Willy Wonka style set of keys that must have had 50 keys on it on a big ring.
Oh, no.
And as slow as Tennessee molasses, starts trying every single one of them into the lock while this band is now in their second tune. And he's trying more, and none of them work. To make a very long story short, the band finishes. I'm still not in the booth. I am coming out of my skin because I'm not sitting where I'm supposed to be sitting. I run to the next booth where Lori Beck was tabulating next door. I go, move! And she shifts out of the way. I stand up on the platform and I fling myself out of the booth into my booth. And I've got 1 foot in her booth and 1 foot in my booth. And I'm holding on to the edge. And there is a plexiglass divider in between the booths. So it's like a foot of plexiglass. I'm like, I'm going to die. The first row of stands is like 40 feet directly below me. And
oh my God, what are you doing?
The people that are sitting in those seats have no idea that I'm about to kill them and myself when I fall to my death. Paul Hindman was the band director at ETSU at the time. He's got my hand on this side and I'm like, don't let go, don't let go. Oh my God. And all of a sudden, I don't know where the energy came from, but I flung myself into the booth, sit down, flip on the mic, and I do the name of the band as the last kid leaves the Quonset hut and goes out into the parking lot.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And the crowd, of course, then turns and looks at me like, where you been? You know, like what? You have no idea.
Just another day.
The best show was going on behind them.
Dude, the next weekend was the Atlanta show in the old Georgia Dome. And before we got there, which, by the way, Georgia Dome Catering, best peach cobbler in the whole dang world.
Oh, yeah.
There's a picture of Spider-Man on the barking booth. In the Georgia Dome, where the PA booth was, they had enclosed it in plexiglass and it had its own little door on it. So I called it the barking booth, like the $64,000 question sort of isolation booth. But the problem with that one was that up in the ceiling was the air conditioning vent. And it went straight down in that booth that they had just encased in plexiglass. So it was freezing cold in there all the time. But anyway, they'd put a picture of Spider-Man on the booth for me there. And it was, I'm glad I'm alive to tell the story.
I think it's a testament, though, to the lengths that we go to. I don't know if you guys have heard the Canton Pro Football Hall of Fame story. The first time we were in Canton, a brand new stadium, and I go in there in the morning and it is luxury. And there is an amazing electro voice microphone on steroids in the PA booth. And it had the filter and just all these machines that were completely dark. And I said, we got to get this turned on. Well, we're 15 minutes before time to start and they still don't have it turned on. And I'm like, is this going to work? Well, it's all controlled from California.
Oh, you're kidding.
Oh, nice.
And I said, we're in Canton. How is it controlled in California? So I got on the wire and one of the bands that had just finished warm up sent in their Long Rangers. And I went down to the field and the first block of bands, I had one Long Ranger turn to the field and two Long Rangers turn to the stands. And I don't have a lot of head cover. And it was a really sunny day.
Oh, gosh.
And so about the time noon rolled, two things happened. First of all, one of the wonderful BOA team members brought me a bucket hat. And the second thing that happened was they commissioned some kind of a rock and roll sound system that is probably the best that it could have possibly sounded. And so we had speaker stacks that looked like it was some kind of a death metal concert sitting.
By finals, you mean?
No, it was like by the last
by the end
two
of prelims?
blocks of prelims.
Wow.
Yeah, they got it done at noon. I mean, the BOA staff just moved heaven and earth, first of all, to get some Long Rangers for the first block.
Yeah. How did you not compete with the frequencies of the other bands on those Long Rangers?
Just a great question. It just didn't.
Wow.
You know what? I don't want to throw any more complicating factors into it. So I didn't even think of that. But the point being that we care so much about this, you know, and I know Dan was locked out of a press box once.
Well, the story I was going to tell actually is not that far away in Massillon, Ohio, which, Chuck, I know you've done this show, right?
Yeah.
And maybe they've got a new stadium by now, but Massillon, one of the legendary high school football programs in the country, has a not very good stadium and a horrible press box the last time I did it, and didn't have any kind of AC or heating. And it was probably an October show. And in Ohio, it was freezing cold. And the PA cut out in the middle of finals.
Oh, no.
And just went dead. And so I had to do, until we got, I forget if we used somebody's pit equipment eventually, but for the next several bands, I had to open up the window in the press box and yell out the window.
You did not.
Joining us from, yeah.
You did not. How did I not know that? Oh, my God.
Yes.
Yeah, where was social media at that time?
That would live forever.
That calls on my drum major skills, right?
Right.
Had to be heard.
Could you even speak by the end of the show?
Yeah, I think I was.
Did you actually finish the show that way?
No, I'm pretty sure we used somebody's pit after 2 or 3 bands at the most, but still.
We had it the first year we went to Austin P for a show there. John, we ran into the same problem with the frequencies. So they had just put in a new system that was wireless to their PA, but they didn't check the frequencies against what the bands were using for their mic'd instruments. So it was a mess. It was a mess for like the first 3 or 4 bands. And then the guy at the stadium said, well, the old system is on the other side of the field. They had flipped the home stands to be on the other side. And he was like, well, yeah, it's over there. And I go, well, okay, let's see if we can make this happen. I finished a band. Now, you know how much time is in between bands. I finished a band, closed up the book, grabbed my stuff, ran down the steps, ran around the track to the other side, ran up the steps, into the booth, flipped it on, and still made it in time for the next band announcement.
Nice.
Wow.
That's commitment, ladies and gentlemen.
And you did the whole show from the backside?
From the back, yeah.
How different.
Which was interesting for me. It is what it is. After all these years of being attached to this organization, we talk about our bloopers, we talked about our origins and everything, but I want to kind of move into what it means to us to be the guys that we are, the men and women who get to represent the organization in such a public fashion, because it's a real privilege, and I know you guys feel the same way as well. There was a time at Grand Nationals, the first year that Etowanda came from California to Grand Nationals. And we all know that my favorite thing to say is Etowanda, California. Rancho Cucamonga, California is my favorite thing to say. And I got an opportunity. The band was on the field, and I don't know what, it was before the show. I think they'd been allowed to rehearse in the stadium prior to prelims, like while the event was setting up or something. Anyway, I got a chance to go down and meet Don Jaramillo and talk to the kids and say, you know what, guys, just between you and me, my favorite thing to say is Rancho Cucamonga, California. And they just light up like Christmas trees. John, you know the story of the guy and the other guy, the story of when Centerville did the I Heart Chuck shirts. Do you guys remember that? I still have one of those shirts. I don't know what show it was, but Centerville High School, these 2 kids at band camp were talking about Grand Nationals, about Bands of America. And one of them was like, oh, dude, that's awesome. It's awesome. And someone goes, I love Chuck. Oh my God, I love Chuck too. Next thing you know, the whole band has printed I Heart Chuck t-shirts and they have them on at the regional.
That's so cool.
They sent one up to the booth. And that night at finals, I don't know if I've ever shared this story actually. That night at finals, we announced Centerville. They start their show. I take the sweatshirt off that I have on and I have that shirt underneath it so that they could see that I was wearing it. Now, none of the judges could see, none of the staff could see, but the band could see.
That's awesome.
That I was invested in part of their program. It's things like that will always sit with me as being just some of the most heartwarming and wonderful parts of our experience. What do you guys think? Anything like that in your repertoire right off the top of your bat?
I just want to compliment you guys. My experience as an announcer with BOA was 40 years ago. And by the way, after this fall, when my last kid is no longer in marching band in college, I'm ready to rejoin the ranks. But I want to compliment you guys for breaking that 4th wall and actually interacting with the kids and the band directors. And that I Love Chuck shirt story is just phenomenal. And you being up in that booth and cheering on those kids with the I Love Chuck shirt on it's a great testament, Chuck, to what we do.
I think we all would wear whatever shirt needed to be worn to whatever band, right?
Yes.
Yeah, John, I never wore any LD Bell stuff under my BOA attire.
I'm pretty sure you got censored by BOA management at one point for your obvious leanings towards certain groups.
Scott McCormick came into the booth before San Antonio finals one year and said, I want you to announce LD Bell just like everybody else.
Well, would you have done it differently? Of course not.
Of course. It was all in what he was hearing. I'm sure.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
What does it for me? 2 things. Just what I've gotten personally out of it professionally is from being a marching member of a drum corps. When I'm on the air on the radio, when I'm about to turn on that mic in a PA booth, my head is in the exact same place it was when I stepped onto the field to perform, right? So marching band and drum corps teach us to perform and to have that mindset and to be ready and be prepared. I still use that today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen.
What I get from it now on a daily basis, and the reason I've used all of my PTO for the last 20 years to do marching band or drum corps, is that I get to interact with those kids. And I get to set aside the 5 days a week when I talk about the worst that humanity can do to each other. I do 4 hours of news talk every day, and it is most of the time really depressing.
Yeah.
I get my hope back. I get my spirit back from being around young people who are pursuing excellence. And it gives me hope for the future. And it's tonic, it restores me.
Yeah, I agree with that, Dan. So I talk about it being 40 years ago with my announcing experience with BOA, but I've brought up 3 kids and 2 of them were in band. And what you just said is exactly why we do what we do. The years I spent in marching band, the years I spent in the booth, they taught me something. They taught me how to be excellent, how to be prepared, how to be professional. They taught my kids that. And I serve on the board of directors for the Academy Drum and Bugle Corps for that reason, because I want to be a part of something that is creating this next generation of excellent citizens. I want to be a part of these marching band programs. I was the president of the booster board for my kids' marching bands, right? I want to be a part of something that's creating great citizens in our country. And that's why we participate in these things.
Nailed it. I mean, I've been, all you guys, I've been blessed to have 2 careers and a lifelong passion project. And my first career was my education career, and being able to see the lessons, the life lessons, the citizenship lessons, just how successful you become having training in the arts, and particularly being part of a band program or an orchestra program. Anything in instrumental music really just is so formative. So that first education career is where I was exposed to the Music for All organization. And I had the honor to work as an instructor. And then thanks to you guys, have had the opportunity to continue that passion project. Well, my career now is international. And so I'm all over the place, and it's a very competitive business that I'm in. And it's almost diametrically opposite of music education, because it's all about, it's the international diamond business, by the way. It's a long story. But the bottom line is, it's not anything like this. And yet, the lessons that I take from this make me immensely successful interacting and doing business. And the reason that I call this my lifelong passion project, I'll just give you a quick example. I need to be in Hong Kong next week to speak at the show there, the very large conference there. And I had them push back my speech by 1 day so that I can make it to the Austin Regional to do the announcements.
Nice.
Yes.
Now you got your priorities straight.
We'll be good when we establish a regional in Hong Kong. John will be ready to go.
He'll be good to go. There's a ton. I mean, I did some work in Indonesia for a while, and the marching band programs in Indonesia and Malaysia and Tokyo are incredible. I wouldn't be surprised to see more of them come to Grand Nationals, or we could talk about the future of Bands of America coming up as well. But I want to tick toward the future just a little bit and talk about AI and announcing. Is there any concern from you guys that AI is going to take our jobs?
No.
Why do you say that? Because right now, I know that AI could easily just load the information in and make the show happen without us.
Oh, absolutely it could.
I know what BOA's official answer is, and I'll share that with you in a minute, but have you given that any thought, or have you had those discussions?
I've used AI in my daily, and it's all about the prompts to basically sharpen my skills even further. That's my use of it. Now, I will say this, AI is not the first potential threat. You also have schools that could afford to get Samuel L. Jackson to do the intro to their show.
Right.
And you also have schools that say, we want to use a pre-recording just of our own, because we just want it to be timed exactly as we want it. Well, the cool thing about MFA is that MFA wants everything before the show officially begins, which is 4 minutes into the warm-up. And everything after the show officially ends, they want it to be an absolutely level playing field. From when the band director and the students come to the gate, they are greeted the same way, to the setting up on the field and that time they have, what they can do with it and what they can't do with it. And they want the announcement to also be a level playing field. So for that reason, I feel like we're okay. I feel like we're going to be fine.
Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, we could all be replaced tomorrow. I would think if it does happen, it's not going to be in the near future. Mainly, and John has good points too. I would add on to that. One of our responsibilities as public address announcers is as a safety officer of sorts for a large event. And if there is an emergency, you want a live presence on the microphone with a level head who isn't going to panic, who isn't going to scream, who, knows what the protocol is and what the procedure is and how to execute it. There's a flexibility that you need there that I don't think in real time would be practical not to have a human being charged with that job.
I agree. The ability to think on your feet and to do so rationally and knowing that people are actively listening to what you need to tell them. I will tell you that I had this discussion with Bands of America and with Debbie Lafferty, and she was very clear that that would never be something that Bands of America would ever even consider because A, it puts people out of a job, and they're not about that. They're not about putting people out of work. And I really applauded that. And she goes, and number two, you guys are Bands of America. You can't replicate that in a computer-generated entity. What you bring, Dan, what you bring, John, what you did, Rich, is part of the fabric of the organization. And one of the things that, and I want to talk about the future too, and what you guys see for the future of Bands of America. But, for me personally, when I had the issues that I am still having with my sight and had to step away, I just assumed that I was done, that I was put out to pasture, and that was that. But I want to, for Dan and John specifically, I want to thank you guys here and now for the amount of kind words that you sent to me and the random text messages here and there. Or you guys were out having a drink and you'd send a picture, hey, wish you were here sort of stuff. That meant everything to me. It's that family that we've created at Bands of America that's the most important part. When BOA invited me to come be their guest at the 2024 Grand Nationals, I reluctantly agreed. And for a couple reasons, and I think I've talked to you guys about this, because I stayed in my hotel room for the first day entirely, petrified to even leave the building. Not because I don't know the way to the stadium, I certainly do, but because my vision was such that I didn't know that I would recognize anyone. You walk through that convention center between the hotels and there, and literally for all of us, there's hundreds of people that and they're all going to stop and you're going to want to visit with them and say hi. And that scared me more than anything. Just walking through the convention center and keeping my head down so that no one would say hi to me. And it took a couple days for me to get past that. And you guys all know DJ Korchin. DJ's a wonderful author of children's books. And I was on my way to finals because they'd asked me to speak to the crowd and kind of explain my situation before finals. And I thought, well, that'll be a bummer way to start the show. But DJ Korchin, as I'm on my way over, he hands me his latest book and says, hey, Chuck, I want you to have this. And it was called Shut Up and Feel was the name of the book. And it's not a children's book at all. It's an adult book. It's done in children's style, but it basically says, look, we've all got problems. We've all got issues. Take time to deal with it. Feel what you need to feel and then move on. And he hands this to me as I'm walking over to give this so-called, speech in front of the finals crowd. That gave me what I needed to make that happen. And, to be able to say to that crowd, hey, by the way, tonight is Dan's first Grand National Finals. As many years as we've all been doing this, he gets to do this tonight. And it really helped me so much. But that's what the organization has done for me. It's said to me, Chuck, we'll always have a place for you. There'll always be a place for you here at Bands of America. And I will say that to you guys, when you get to the end of your run, that's not the end with Bands of America. This is an organization that means something, that stands for exactly what they say they stand for. And that is excellence, plain and simple. And I'm so proud to be attached to you boys and to be associated with this amazing organization. And I know you guys feel the same.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I feel like I'm keeping your seat warm, dude. And I want you to come back. What's your status?
It's not likely to happen. So that weekend, my vision, so if 2020 is normal vision, my vision that weekend was 20/250, which means what you see at 250 feet, I needed to be 20 feet away from to see, which is why I was just walking around in a blur most of the weekend. Now, it's better. A year and a half later, it's like 2080. So we're just on the cusp of maybe with corrective lenses getting me to drive again. But I don't see, because my tear For those folks that don't know, I had a torn and detached retina in my right eye, and my left eye's always been bad. The tear went across the macula of my eye, which is that center dot, right in the middle. So the repairs go through that center dot, which means the scar tissue is there. And that's what I'm looking through all the time. So I describe it as living in Dr. Seuss Town, which is a really happy place. But everything is all wavy. There are no door jambs that are straight up and down. So I would be concerned that it would be, as far as announcing is concerned, I don't know that I would have the confidence to do it again, just because reading is essential to that job. And I can't read anything unless I put it right up next to my face. And for a whole day of that would be really tough. So I'm happy to abdicate the throne, as it were, Dan, because, you guys, everybody is so good. Everybody's so good. And there isn't before we started this conversation, we were talking about the guy and the other guy and all that sort of stuff. And while that was cute, it really was a little offensive because it meant that there was a hierarchy, and there's never been a hierarchy. We're all really good at our jobs, and everybody gets that. So anyway,
I'll still keep your seat warm for you.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. I'll come visit. And actually, quite frankly, Dan, that's why I didn't come up to the booth at all that year. I just couldn't. I couldn't walk in the door without crying.
Yeah, well, your emotions are one thing. It wasn't going to bother me, and you were welcome there.
Yeah, I know. It was just that I couldn't walk in the door.
I know.
So I can now. And I'll be up there this year. They've asked me to host the 50th anniversary celebration at the event this year.
Awesome.
Nice.
So, there'll be plenty of things for me to do that don't involve the public address, because I can do things like that without having those kind of skill set. So let's kind of look into the future a little bit. Did someone have something?
I was just going to say the same thing. I think it would be perfect to segue from your comments about vision to the mission and vision, and how this is playing out right now for everybody.
What I love is that they follow it to a T. There's never a variation on the mission statement and the vision and where they want to go. So I want to kind of, get out our crystal ball a little bit and have you guys look off into the future. And where do you see the organization going? And if you haven't given that any thought, which I'm not asking you to predict or to go on record about anything, but, where would you like to see the organization go? All right, John, let me start with you.
Sure. So I've been on the board of directors for Music for All for a number of years, and we've just selected, and it was a very thoughtful search process. We've just selected a new CEO and president. And I'm very happy with, first of all, the process. Second of all, the caliber of candidates. Oh my gosh, luminaries. And so there was no such thing as a wrong choice when we got down to the finalists. And I'm very happy with the direction it's going.
I met Dr. Weaver at DCI. Seemed very, very nice.
Yes.
But of course, he's looking at me like, I don't know who you are.
Well, but I think that's a strength, because one thing is his specialties have not been necessarily in the marching arena. And so we've kind of got that covered. You know what I mean? Especially when you've mentioned Deb a couple times, who for me is a North Star for this organization. And I think it actually works in our favor that he's really on the concert side, and he knows a lot of the state music organizations. So you asked where this is going. What I'd like to see, we've got great presence in a lot of states, particularly in the regional concert band festivals and the marching season. But I think we could expand to even more things in more states, and especially in the digital realm, because we've not done digital.
What do you mean? Yeah, explain that to me.
Yeah, throwing this out as an example. Any kid that has free software and an internet connection could come up with a composed digital track. And that doesn't have to be any kind of concert music. This could be something that's very, very nowadays and pop. And we can actually, through digital recognition, we can have those, I'll say judged, but you know what I'm saying is I'm just saying we can give more people a platform who don't normally have access or opportunity to get that kind of recognition. So that's what I would like to see ahead.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Dan, what do you think?
I'd like to see us, somebody touched on it earlier, Chuck, I think it was you, about expanding maybe and having an international division, or at least having an international presence every year, have a unit from overseas come and join us. I'd like to see us get more into the indoor winter activity, indoor winds. I think there's a possibility there. And then I think there are parts of the country that, even though we have expanded now to, what are we up to, like 25 regionals and super regionals or something?
Crazy.
I think we can do more, because there are parts of the country that still do not have the kind of access that, say, a band in Texas does to a BOA show.
I love the way you're thinking about that, because music for all doesn't mean music for all in the United States.
True.
It means music for all.
Right.
I like that.
Maybe it's grand internationals in the future.
What? Rich, what do you think?
So I love hearing what John's talking about and what Dan's talking about. And honestly, I haven't thought about the future of music for all. But let me just share this with you. I had an epiphany last night as I was thinking about this podcast and realizing that looking at this panel of announcers, we are gentlemen of a certain age. And I don't know if you guys were campers or contestants. Chuck, I know you were a color guard instructor.
Well, like Dan, I was a drum corps kid that ended up at the summer camp, and yeah.
Right. So I was a camper in the early 80s, right? I was part of that first generation of campers at Bands of America, then Marching Bands of America. And in 2017, 18, somewhere around there, my daughter went to a Bands of America contest in Flagstaff, Arizona. So she was part of that next generation. And now it's, it just dawned on me. It is a multi-generational organization now. I'm not the first one to come up with that, but it was the first time that it really dawned on me. So it's not only shaped who I am, but it's now shaping the next generation of students, of musicians. And I just want to see it just keep inspiring generations in the same way. So wherever it goes, whatever it does, I hope the organization continues to make music education accessible for every student, no matter where they are, John, no matter what country they're in, Chuck, wherever they come from. I hope that it just keeps creating those life-changing moments and experiences.
Yeah, I used to say when I started, there were kids in the band who have kids in the band, but now they have grandkids in the band. So
yeah.
But we have a great stock. Don't you guys think we have a great stock of younger people coming up? Alex comes to mind almost right away, who's still in his 20s and doing shows right now. I mean, he's the age I was when I started. And when we were doing the OG and OG2 and OG3 shirts, he got OG9 was his number.
I wish I had the Excel spreadsheet up in front of me, but we're around 10 or 11 announcers right now.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I told Alex, I go, you hang on to this shirt. And every time one of us retires, I want you to mark through that number and lower it one, because this is his kingdom to inherit. And I think that all of us have given them the tools they need and the inspiration they need to make that happen. Just one other quick question for everybody, and that's, we've talked about how you started. We've talked about our blunders and mistakes. We've talked about the future of the organization and some light moments, but I want to kind of get into our hearts a little bit and have each of you kind of share with me a little bit about what it means to you to be associated with this organization. And John, as someone who's not only been actively involved as an announcer, but someone who's been on the board of directors, someone who's been a teacher, someone who's, you've seen this from all angles. It's got to be everything in your world.
That's exactly the word I was going to use. When Dan was talking about his day job, I felt eerily similar. I've got a day job. And by the way, I really enjoy my day job. I enjoy what I do. But this is really what is important. And it's important on so many levels. Rich, when you're talking about the generational aspect, playing a clarinet, you can have a 60-year-old talking to a 16-year-old at national festival. Same thing with all the instruments, because it's so kinesthetic. And that's one thing. AI is not about to replace music educators, guys. Teaching that set of skills requires human beings. And so I think that just trying to do everything we can to satisfy mission and vision, to me, I think the word you used, Chuck, is perfect. To me, it's really everything.
Rich?
It's in my blood. I may have stepped away for a hot minute from Bands of America, but it never left me. It influences everything that I do. Scott McCormick was in my wedding. And, it ties to everything that I've done in my life. It influences how I act and behave. It's influenced my kids. It influences where I volunteer and my friendships. So it's just been a part of almost everything that I do in every aspect.
Mr. Potter, how about you, sir? I know. I know.
Between, you can separate DCI from BOA and they should be. But for me, I start in June with DCI. There's a couple weeks in September where I don't have anything. And it's really from June to November where it's every weekend and sometimes full weeks. And it's every bit of PTO that I've had for the last probably 20 years. And sometimes I would even do the morning show from the road and then go do a BOA regional. And my wife and I were talking about that actually earlier today about, when's the last time you had a vacation? And there have been a couple, but I don't miss them too much. She may, but I don't miss them too much because the things that I want from a vacation, I have gotten from Bands of America and I've gotten from Drum Corps International. And mostly that's hanging out with people I love and doing something that I don't do the rest of the week that takes my mind off of it, right? I'm not a sit at the beach kind of person. I'm not a go into a cabin in the woods and isolate for a week kind of vacation person. I get to hang around with, and sometimes I think that my best friends are in this activity precisely because I don't see them every day or don't have access to them every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
That my access to these people I love is limited.
It's seasonal.
It's seasonal. And when I get to spend time with them, it's so very special. So, yeah, all the platitudes about how the kids lift me up and restore me, that's all great.
Yeah.
But the selfish part of it for me is I have a mini vacation every weekend with people I love.
Fair.
Amen.
That's a beautiful way to wrap it up, I think. Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for being part of this today. We are all part of the history of this organization, and this will be marked forever. John Pollard, Rich Frazier, Dan Potter, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Joining Us podcast. We are celebrating 50 years of Music for All and Bands of America. Do you have your own story or memory to share? Well, I want to hear it. You can record your own story by visiting musicforall.org/podcasts. We may just include your voice in a future episode. Hey, thanks to Yamaha, our national presenting sponsor. And don't forget to make sure you're subscribed to the Music for All Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts. I want to thank Ben and Laura from the team at Music for All for making this happen and lining up all of our guests. And of course, the way it sounds, that's the magic of our executive producer, Patrick Keller. I'm Chuck Henson. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week on Joining Us.
Joining us from Avon, Indiana.